AskReddit creepy with Mr. Greatstory. What are some very creepy facts? Female mummies in ancient Egypt were always more decomposed than their male counterparts. They discovered that this was because male bodies were embalmed a lot sooner than female bodies. Female bodies were kept at the family home until they started to decompose in order to avoid necrophilia at the embalmers. Elmer McCurdy was a failed Old West outlaw. His preserved body was put on display in a traveling carnival, and years later he was eventually assumed to be mannequin until he was used on set for the TV show The $6 Million Man. His arm accidentally fell off during the shoot, revealing bone and muscle, and that he was a corpse, not a mannequin. The men of the ship Essex, the true event that inspires the story Moby Dick avoided islands after being shipwrecked for fear of cannibals. The islands were settled, and landing there would have brought salvation to the survivors. Ironically, because of this bypass, the men ran out of food and were forced to eat each other for survival. After raping his blindfolded victims, the Golden State Killer would be super duper quiet and pretend like he was gone. And right when the poor victims would start to move towards the phone or try to untie themselves, he would scare the fucking shit out of them. I once read that you should play dead if a bear attacks you, unless they start licking your wounds, because that means they plan to eat you. That still haunts me to this day. Edit, if it helps, I'm pretty sure I was reading about grizzly bears at the time during one of my fevered grizzly man rabbit holes. It wasn't until 1987 that the American Academy of Pediatrics declared it unethical to operate on newborns without anesthesia. Until surprisingly recently, the medical community felt it would be dangerous to give infants anesthesia and/or believed that they didn't feel pain. Imagine being totally aware of someone performing CPR, but you physically can't move or respond. Well, that's what happens when you get bitten by a blue-ringed octopus. You have approximate 6 minutes between being bitten and someone starting CPR to keep your heart and lungs functioning to ensure you survive, all whilst being totally aware of what is happening to you. Neurotoxins are fun. One reason that crows and ravens are associated with death is that they would often follow armies as they marched to battle. Being both carrion birds and extremely intelligent, they realized that a large group of armed men marching on one direction meant that there would be a tasty meal of corpses to eat soon afterward. Crocodiles can gallop like a horse. I don't like knowing this, so I'm cursing you people with this knowledge as well. Fortunately, alligators cannot. Your brain can play tricks on you to make you see monsters in the mirror, called the Traxler effect. The Traxler effect is an optical illusion that affects how you perceive things, both visually and mentally. Since 1900, over 13,000 people have been murdered by serial killers in the USA. The human body can be drained of blood in 8.6 seconds given adequate vacuuming systems. There's a spider that gives you a 3H long boner before you die from its bite. Edit, the boner it gives you is very painful. There are upwards of 300 active serial killers in the world. According to Abe Lincoln's bodyguard Crook, he said Lincoln had a dream about his own assassination 3 nights in a row before he was killed. Crook told Lincoln not to go on that fateful night, and all Lincoln said was goodbye, Crook, before he went to the play. This was very odd, as Lincoln always said, good night, not goodbye. Most people smell different when they are awake. More than 7,000 people die annually due to the doctor's bad handwriting. A single tiger has killed over 436 people in India. People don't take their anti-malarial drugs when they travel because they hear bad stories about the side effects, and they see native people in the areas living okay without taking pills every day. The truth is, populations native to malaria endemic areas have all passed through pretty intense natural selection for survival and have a host of genes that prevent them from dying or suffering the other worst effects. Also, most of the resistance is built up over time. This is why it's most common for children to die rather than adults. Whatever people have heard about the side effects of the antimalarials, getting it is so much worse. I, fortunately, have never had it, but I study it as part of my work, and people have told me about having it, and they all say the same thing. It is so awful you can't believe you're even still alive. It comes in cycles, usually 48 hours, and each cycle is agonizing and brings you the brink of death. Sometimes it takes you, sometimes it spares you for another few hours until it starts again. And there are forms that, even if you clear the infection with drugs, it still remains dormant in your system and can come back at any time. Edit. I don't want to freak people out too much. There are drug combinations that can kill every stage of the parasite, as long as there is no drug resistance. Since 2007, at least 20 detached human feet have been found on the coasts of the Salish Sea. Human brains when they dry out smell like cat piss, that stinky ammonia smell. Worked in an ER for 17 years in court, had a gunshot to the head coming, and a chunk fell onto my shoe, and didn't notice. While driving home was like, WTF, did my cat piss in the car or something? Went to take my shoes off and there it was. Edit. For all you people with morbid curiosity, fresh brains look like cream cheese mixed with strawberry jam. Edit 2. No, they died. Trans life harvested organs. There's a parasite that enters a fish's mouth, eats the tongue, and replaces itself as the fish's new tongue. Half of your favorite 70s rock stars had 14-year-old girlfriends. Sense of impending doom is an actual symptom that often precludes your death, usually in cases of heart attack. Very creepy for some of us that suffer from anxiety and panic attacks to begin with. Both share that symptom. After getting stung by a cone snail, you don't feel the sting for a little bit. There is no antivenin, and it can be lethal. Treatment is basically keeping the victim alive until the venom wears off. Hearing is the last thing to go after you die. You just might hear the paramedics and firefighters call off CPR. Mount Everest is covered in frozen corpses because removing them is very unsafe and time consuming. They are easily viewed from the climbing routes and some are used as trail markers. A black mamba is the fastest snake, which can slither at a speed of 12.5 miles an hour, 20 km/h. They have neurotoxins which are fast acting. The venom shuts down the nervous system and paralyzes the victim. Its venom is able to kill 10 people and it repeatedly bites. To add on to this, there is an almost 100% kill rate and can kill in 20 minutes. CNN has had a pre-recorded broadcast from the 90s which they will premiere during the end of the world. In 2015, a young woman began to have headaches. They discovered that she had a brain tumor, and when the doctors removed it, they were shocked to see that it was a lump resembling skin that contained bone, teeth, and hair. But this was no parasitic twin. The mass was called a teratoma, or monstrous tumor. When the woman was an embryo, some cell tissue fell off and ended up where it wasn't supposed to be, her brain. It then develops hair and teeth, while the rest of her growing as normal. If you stifle a sneeze, there's a chance you can damage organs in your head, including eye blood vessels, rupturing your eardrums, and possibly rupture a brain aneurysm. Which means there's a small chance stifling a sneeze can kill you. Better to be the loud ass with the sneeze that can be heard around the world than a dead loud ass cause someone told you to stifle that sneeze. Cockroaches have been recorded eating human flesh, both living and dead, as well as fingernails, eyelashes, feet, and hands. The American cockroach and German cockroach are more likely to bite humans than other species. Pretty sure Australian cockroaches do something equally creepy, but as an Australian who plans to sleep at some point in the future, I'm not going to Google it. Men who are hanged get a death erection, known as rigor erectus. Pretty awkward for the family, I assume. Serial killer Richard Chase took any unlocked door as an invitation to come inside. It was once discovered that a fir tree was growing inside a human body. Artyom Sidorkin went to the doctor suspecting something wrong with his lungs. The doctors thought they were dealing with a tumor, but it turns out he had inhaled a fir tree seed which had sprouted and had begun growing in his lungs. Edit. Wow, so Grey's Anatomy is a popular show. I'm sure this was the inspiration for that episode. Blobfish in its natural habitat looks like a normal fish, but it lives so deep underwater that it doesn't use a normal gas bladder to keep itself balanced. Instead, it has a spongy skin, that is slightly less dense than water, which becomes damaged and bloated when fishermen bring it up too quickly. It's not really the ugliest fish. It has just experienced something worse than one of us being thrown into outer space. Between sea level and space, there's 1 atmospheric pressure of difference. Between sea level and 2,000 feet underwater, their upper limit, there are 60 atmospheres of difference. If you begin to display symptoms of rabies, you will go crazy and die. There's no cure. Your brain will slowly melt until you're dead. There was a speech made for Apollo 11 if they were to die on the moon. Side fact, if it were to happen, people would look up at the moon knowing that crew died there, and their bodies would rest there till the end of time. Not forgetting that the ocean is somewhat like this. Many people died there too, at the very depths of the sea. Ducks become cannibals due to boredom, of all fucking reasons. They can only be stopped by cutting off their mouths. In the US, if someone is kidnapped and not found within about a day, then there is a 97% chance the kidnapped person is dead. It's quite common after you die to burp a lot as you have more gas build up. Dead bodies can also sit up on their own sometimes. Thank you for watching. Tell me which one was your favorite. Like, subscribe and hit that notification bell for more. The next video will be even more interesting. You are a legend.